Okay. Well, as my team is letting people in, I'm going to get started. Welcome to the January 13th, 2026 LACOE CalPads Network meeting. We're always happy to have you with us. Happy New Year. Today we will be just a couple reminders, just in case you're dropping anything in the chat. If you can, put your LEA name so we know if we don't have an answer, we can always make sure we're able to get back to you. That's always helpful. If you have questions or comments, please use the chat. We'll do a follow-up email. We always try to that includes a recording of our meeting as well as any questions we were unable to answer or deeper questions or deeper answers, I should say, around things that we maybe can answer at kind of a superficial level. It's a small group. We're uh, nice, polite people. So if you do have something you need to raise, you want to articulate, it's easier to articulate than write. You can just raise your hand. We'll let you come off mute. And we are recording, and we will keep a recording of this. We'll post it shortly after the meeting, usually like within 24 hours. And then we're going to be dropping some links in the chat for you. I am joined by my team. First of all, I'm Evan Bartelheim. I'm the project director for accountability and data literacy here at LACOE. My colleague, Dr. Hilary Weissman, is actually in the training right now. I had to step out to deliver this, but I've got Karina and Roy, my two stalwart and trustworthy folks. And Jeremy just got back to our unit. He was on a little short-term assignment. So we've got the whole team with us again. I haven't seen her join yet, but Sean Walker from the CDE is supposed to be joining us at some point. Hopefully she could make it just to answer questions kind of as we go. We're going to, if she's not here, then I'll send any follow-ups to her. There may be things that she can offer insights that I can't answer, do our best. But let's get started just with a little bit of levity, if you will. So it's a new year. We know there are going to be new challenges. In the chat, drop the word or the phrase that's going to get you through January and fall one. What is keeping you going right now? What's the sticky you have post? Maybe it says, your retirement date. I don't know. Maybe, you've got your trip to Hawaii planned for April. What do you got going to keep you motivated just to get through? The days are darker. And peppermint mocha, Jan. That's always good. Yes, some coffee will always get me going too, right? And chocolate, Noreen, of course, chocolate. Oh, Laura, New Zealand. That's awesome. New Zealand, I've been there. I spent like 2 months there. I love New Zealand. That's a great trip. And I would like to go again. We were just talking about that the other day. Allison, just keep moving forward. I know it's just kind of like put one foot in front of the other. That's kind of what you got to do, especially right now. Oh, Raw, going on vacation tomorrow. Timing is everything. I'm sure you've already certified and you're good to go. Patty, 3 Mondays off. I know it's nice when you put on the calendar that you've got some holidays in the near future. That is nice feeling. Jaime, resilience, patience, and dedication. Well, we know that from having worked with you, Jaime. You're the man when it comes to all three of those. All right. Well, thank you for playing along. And I'm getting a text here from Sean. Okay, she's joining us right now. Excellent. So we have a pretty straightforward agenda. We're just do some introduction meeting announcements. We got most of that out of the way. I'm going to give an accountability update, kind of crosses over not just some dashboard things, but also some other things related to state and federal programs. Then we're going to share with you a bunch of just fall to resources as well as some tools. And I think, primarily I do kind of think from the standpoint of what can you share with other people to help you if you're the CalPads coordinator technician who's getting all this work done to help you do your job better and make the data more accurate. And then we do have our vendor breakout starting at about 10 o'clock your time. Look at me, Mr. Fancy. I'm in a different time zone. Our goals, as always, in the LACOE network is just to share timely information on CalPads issues, to provide feedback to the CDE. So we bring them into the room so they can hear it. to build an understanding of CalPADS impact and reach, which is really where, you can't do it alone. We have to work as a team and get a lot of support around that. Hopefully to connect some of you with one another. We haven't, since we stopped meeting in person, we haven't been able to do that as much, but as we move forward, I really have some new ideas that we want to use to get that to happen. And to build an understanding of CalPADS across LEAs and to share resources. All of our resources are for today are included in our Canvas page, and I know Karina has dropped that link in there, and she can do it again. And we use that as kind of a repository for all our information, and it's always we keep it up. Every once in a while, we have to archive things if it gets kind of outdated, but think of it as a curated place for the resources we find most helpful. Sean, is Sean in now?
Not yet. I haven't seen her come
Okay.
in.
Okay. Well, I'll just move forward when she joins. We can introduce Sean again. Okay. So some accountability updates. Just note the winter cars release is in effect. So the announcement went out the other day that the winter cars release is open. The deadline is February 15th. And if you're a CalPADS person, like I don't deal with cars, that's state and federal programs, but there are two forms listed below that impact Title I student program data that you should be aware of. And just, because it'll make your life easier to know that it's out there. So the Title I Part A school allocations form, this one actually has to be certified by February 15th. So you may want to connect with your state, whoever does your state and federal programs, whoever fills out, it's the Con app or CARS, to make sure this is right, because this form is not open for edits after the deadline. And this is information that you'll have to validate later. So this is the school allocations piece. But this is not as critical as the Title I Part A notification of school-wide programs. But when you're submitting program information at the end of the year in EOY 1 and you're identifying programs for school-wide programs or for targeted assistance schools, I want to make sure this data is accurate. So you might want to just have a check-in or just be aware that it's out there for that it's coming in. Sean, I saw you join. Are you with us?
I am with us, Evan, and I was
All
actually
right.
typing in the chat. We have a flash coming out on this.
Oh, excellent.
Um, I right after this, I have the meeting to check in about that
Okay.
flash to
Hey,
see where the progress is. I wrote it, and then Paula was reviewing and making. I know she posted a few edits that I accepted yesterday.
okay.
Um, so
So
then, yeah.
be on the lookout for this. And Sean, I was just going to say, if there's anything, any clarifications you can add, just in terms of best practices to get this stuff done. But that was, kind of the reason it's fun is important. I think your flash will probably address that.
Yeah, and it'll have specifically like the date alignment that you were speaking of,
Okay.
and how that, factors into their end of year and certification. So it goes into the background and the most important items up top, though.
Okay, excellent. Also, a private preview. You may be aware of this already, but the private preview of the unduplicated pupil count was released. And as a CalPADS administrator, you would have received a notification, as did county and district superintendents, charter school administrators. And this data is not for release. This is just the preliminary data, but it's important to take a look at it. You can compare this data to this is the initial data deadline certified in December 12th, and you can compare it with your fall one report 1.17 or 1.18. And just important to note that the TK, since we're not able to utilize the initial LPAC to determine EL status, this bill that was passed, Bill 121, allowed an adjustment, which is basically using a proxy for English learners for the purposes of the UPC, and that's what you're like an average of what your kindergarten grades include for English learners. So it's applying the same same averages, so you can be credited for TK, since we can't actually know if they're English learners or not until we test them. Just some additional information on that, some upcoming dates that were in the private preview release email. There's some key dates that are listed below here. And if you identify any errors, this is critical since this affects your LCFF funding. So if you identify any errors, you just want to make sure that you get that any changes made and approved by both your CELPA and yourselves prior to the fall one final deadline on January 23rd. And you can see the dates there. So the first principal apportionment comes out in February, and then that official release of the UPC data in April, sometime between April and May. So take a deep look at that. There's a lot of money tied up in this piece.
And if I can just add for this one,
Yeah.
for the private preview, the TK is important as well. There's also the kindergarten only column, and that also has a factor in for birth date, because this was the first year, and the last year where birth date has to be, it's September 5th, September 1st?
Yeah. September 1st, I think.
September 1st, thank you. Okay, I was like, I know it's one. It has to be, uh, they have to turn age 4 by September 1st, of the, school year, academic year. So there's that last column there that says, kindergarten like only as well too. And all of the details, if you get lost, I promise you all of the details have been added to the tabs and clarified. We even did a readjustment of it to make sure that, everyone understood. So just go ahead and click through those different tabs, especially I think it's one for rates. And the second tab that I know has many of the descriptions.
Sean, there are a couple of questions here. I actually don't have access to this file, but maybe you can answer this. The proxy count of TKs, is that actually included? Or is it just embedded in the overall number?
Let me go back and see what it actually says, because I know there's dates on it too, and there's like 3 different columns.
Okay.
So I actually have to look at it. Hold on one second.
Okay.
I looked at it last night, I know.
And I believe that Elena, sorry to answer your question. I believe this went out last week.
Yes, it went out last week. And again, like Evan said, it went out to if your superintendent has signed off on you to be the CalPADS administrator, meaning the CalPADS office has an application on file for you, then you would have gotten this notification. If you did not get this notification, that's the reasoning why. This is password protected and sensitive information, so we have to be able to control who has access to it.
Sean, while you're looking that up, because I got to pack stuff, I'm going to go ahead
Go
and
ahead, keep
move
going.
forward, and you can just drop in when you have the answer to that. So, you undoubtedly have seen these, all the data that was released. I don't know, if anything, just this celebration. Look at how much you contribute to, across both the dashboard, the additional reports, and Data Quest. The work of CalPads is represented in just a multitude of reports. I mean, with the exception of the state assessment data, which even the state assessment data actually has all the demographic information that you provide. Everything on here is largely coming through CalPads end of year. So, and it has a big impact. So, what I wanted to highlight though is that there's also been a release, and this is not a CalPad specific release, but I think if you're interested in data quality, particularly for end of year, there was the CDE released a 2025 college career indicator student level data file. I think it was last week. I did receive access to this one. So, and this is released in the Student Online Accountability Record Status, the SOARS system. It's this secure web-based platform in which they use to share student level data that includes like the English learner data too. The long-term English learner data is released there as well. This isn't intended to be shared with students or families. It really only applies also to those LEAs that serve high school students because it's related to the college career indicator and you have to be a graduate for that. But what it does reflect is the student level data file shows which students completed each of the various college career indicator measures that appear in the 2025 college career additional report. And what's interesting about this is that you could do a post-mortem, I guess, would be the way to say it. And I think Dylan Laris here. He had this great question last week, and I didn't haven't had a chance to kind of break out an example how I'd use this. But as I was looking at the file, people are always asking, "Oh, what is this? How do we know, you know, which students were indicated for which indicators?" And you can get a little bit out of that out of the accountability report 15.2, but this breaks it down in fine detail, even to the extent that you can see students who are not prepared, things that they completed but didn't complete all the way. So you could have a student who is not prepared, for example, who completed one AP exam with a 3 or higher, right? Meaning if that student had completed one more AP course with or an AP exam, they potentially would have been prepared by the AP measure, right? And so it also shows you if a student was prepared by A through G completion. And one other thing, it's impossible to know, was that one college credit course? Was that a CT pathway completion? This file shows you that. It'll show you what contributed to the student being prepared, or if they're approaching it prepared, you can see what. And so you could actually look at it in big scale. It also includes all demographic information. So instead of rerunning 15.2 with all the filters on, it's all right there in that file. So I just share this because dashboard coordinators got this, but in a lot of cases, they may just be like, I don't quite know what to do with this. I think it's actually pretty rich. And I think I would encourage, if CalPADS administrators are asked, I would say to join in a conversation around this. I would strongly suggest it because, of course, all the information that appears here goes through you, and it's kind of a big question of like, well, why didn't we submit this data, or why didn't we? How do we fail to capture certain things in earlier years, like dual enrollment courses, things like that? So I wanted to put your raise your awareness about this and just let you know. I think it's going to be a really helpful tool, and I will have more information about this at our Dan meeting coming up in a couple of weeks with an idea, and I'll share the same information about how I see it can be used. And then I think you may hear from it as CalPADS people, because I always plug the importance of you folks to the dashboard and accountability.
So Evan,
One,
that one goes directly to the handbook, the CalPADS to the dashboard handbook.
yeah,
And if they need if that whole book, that entire book is an example of what you all do
yeah.
and the importance that you play and how it links to it.
Yeah, and I included
So
the links to both of these, and I do think they're kind of operating in different levels, but that CalPAD, connecting CalPADs to the dashboard handbook, it's like this is in the weeds, and you may get questions about this periodically. And I know some of the folks who are on here are accountability folks who want to know more about how they can shape their data practices. So that is the weedy one. You can also learn a little bit more from like a higher level, a little more general explanation of those indicators at the dashboard technical guides as well. They don't get specifically into which reports to run, or in CalPADS to do some initial interpretation of results at the end of a year, but they do explain a lot. Let me just add, though, I want to bring this up again. We talked about this at our last meeting, and I then subsequently went out and we have a bunch of districts we work with for dual enrollment through both the Golden State Pathway Program, as well as we have this new network called LACAN. It's a dual enrollment network, and I'm not even sure what LACAN stands for. But boy, when I brought this up, we got a lot of questions around this, and then we subsequently asked CDE about this. So as I mentioned, course code 9227, college credit course other. The state board voted to remove this from the list of college credit courses that are used in the CCI to establish the college credit measure. But it's not slated to begin until the 2027 dashboard. And the intent of putting it off that far was to allow LEAs serving high school students to review the college credit courses, make sure if a course was identified as such that it was appropriately, because there are a lot of courses that meet that criteria. They are college credit other. They're not something else, but you want to take a look at those to make sure that you don't have something in there that really should be a CTE course code, or maybe fits under another academic course code for dual enrollment purposes. Take a look at that. And so a lot of people are like, geez, I don't know. And how soon do we need to do this? And the one thing that, I think was unclear was, this is not going to be applied retroactively. So in other words, you have kids now who are in 11th grade that'll be graduating in 2027. And so if they're taking a course right now and you're thinking, well, I have till 2027 to change that, you actually don't, because that if it's marked as 9227 in this year, it will be excluded for consideration when that student graduates. So the time to start looking is now. So I just want to ensure there's like some attention placed on that. And that said, it's not being retired. That course code is still going to be around, and there are a lot of courses for which this is totally appropriate. And looking at some of the titles that were in there, I think a lot of them are appropriately placed. They may be college exploration, things like that, that really aren't CTE, and they're not really an academic course. But you definitely want to make sure that there's nothing that's living in those course codes that might be better, more appropriate. And you really need to look at the course description from the community college. And I've had a couple of community college people reach out as well to say, how do we know what these are? And I sent them you might do the same. Send them the course code documentation so they can see the descriptions of the course codes. There's actually um, if it's a CT course, there's a more robust description of the CT courses in the document, which I can add later. It's the CT pathways that has all the state course codes mapped and pathways in it. All right. So another reminder about the CalPADS differentiated assistance, the method 4. So we mentioned this, I think, last time that we bought another year that we are going to only be districts and county offices would only be identified for this method 4 of differentiated assistance eligibility if they fail to certify data by the final certification deadlines. And for the most part, I haven't looked at the most recent end of year, or sorry, not end of year, but fall one. But I trust you guys are mostly in, but it does happen. I mean, it happened. A couple of our districts were identified this year. So anyway, I just wanted to note, and I'll promote this. We had a data governance CSIS, I should say. We hosted a data governance academy watch party for this CSIS Data Governance Academy. It was back in October. There are 2 additional pieces to that coming up, and I confirmed with CSIS folks that even if you weren't able to attend back in October, that they're going to construct these so they're still meaningful. So coming up in February 19th, there is a data governance virtual check-in. It's going to consist of like some check-ins around the work that people started, but also to hear from a panel of people. And you just registered for this as an individual. It's like there's a registration link on the CSIS page. I would recommend just listening to it just so you get a sense of what data governance is. It's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal in terms of the number of people involved. It's really kind of beyond the scope of just a single, if you're sitting in the CalPAD seat, you to do it on your own. The expectation was that they want cabinet level leaders, CalPAD admins, DA staff. They really want an expansive group. But at least if you listen to it, and maybe there'll be a recording too, you can get some buy-in from people like that, right? And then they're going to have a data governance series of data governance at different facilities, not ours. We're having a watch party, I should say, at ours, similar to what we did in October. We have more room this time. We didn't have a lot of room last time. We got a big room this time. So if you're interested in coming to the data governance, it's part 2, but it'll be relevant. We have an in-person watch party. I want to emphasize you have to be here. It's in person. I will be facilitating. There'll be points where we stop and I will be asking questions, whatnot, and engaging you. We had a couple of districts who last time came with teams. That's the whole idea, bring a team. So we'll be doing that on April 8th. And there's a registration link for you. It's in Canvas and also on this page. So, and also, I want to just highlight the Universal Supports Toolkit. So this is really it's beyond just CalPADS data. That's why it requires a bigger team. It has to do with any data, including assessment data, including HR data, all those things. So, but it's very relevant in terms of how they framed it, because CSIS, of course, is primarily concerned about the data quality in CalPAD. So, but maybe check out that February 19th just to get a sense of it. And if you can, build a team to come back with you for April. Okay.
Evan, if I can make a small plug there.
Yeah, please.
For the watch party that I was in attendance of the watch party. And I had already been to them, of course, but when I enter in the room, I try and reserve my thinking as if I'm walking in brand new with fresh eyes. So it gives you all a chance to learn, and for me not to apply like any biases. Um, with that, I want to say thank you to all of the LEAs that did show up, but especially those that showed up with the team. We had 2 LEAs, and no offense, they're not really close by to LACOE's Downey Hub there. And so to have them come from, various parts and again, fully show up with their teams, that was one, inspiring, and two, I know they were able to walk away and the conversations that I heard and them engaging in and the work that they were taking back, that was it makes you feel really rewarded for you all just because you get the sense and the collaboration that yes, your work matters.
Thank you for that, Sean. Yeah, it was inspiring. Actually, it was very engaging, the people who were there. So they did a good job framing it and engaging people with lots of activities. It kept people less of hearing people talk and more people working. So that's always good too. I just checking the chat here while you're sharing that. I want to note, Shelly asked if we have a list of dashboard coordinators. I have it. I don't have it access to it right now. But I will ask Karina to send me an email to remind me so I can pull that up and tell you who we've got from your district listed on the state list that we got because I reach out to dashboard coordinators for various things. Is there a flyer for the in-person session in April? Not yet. We are waiting. CSIS is the host. We're hosting the facility, but they needed to send us an update. I'll reach out to Matt from CSIS and see if we can get a flyer for that or when we might expect that. And they haven't posted it, so they I haven't seen it on their CSIS page yet for the professional development. Okay, so let's keep on moving forward because I know we'll always run out of time here. So fall two, why is this important? Why is it so important? Well, it's important for a lot of reasons. So you've got in terms of, where you'll feel the pinch, you've got kind of three main buckets that are being reported. Both English learner services and then the staff and course data that's being submitted. And then you also got that post-secondary status outcome survey data that needs to be submitted. So you've got, your monitoring that takes place for EL services. That's important that, if you get an English learner FPM visit, which I've had in the past, and they're going to ask for lots of data out of there. So you want to make sure that that data is accurate. And then also the teaching assignment information that comes out of there, the appropriately credentialed teachers for your English learners. And then that also informs your TAMO data as well as the California dashboard, where the TAMO data also resides under the local indicator priority one. Your staff and course information also is used in the SARC. And then that post-secondary status outcome that's the CTE completer data. That's part one. You do it again for your special education students in end of year. But this is really critical and required for Perkins grant money as well as CTAG and other CTE-oriented funding. So you got to get that done for that. And of course, I want to just point out, this means who should you have on your team, right? So just looking at this list, in terms of who's looking at things, you definitely want to have your EL staff looking to help you verify things. You want to have your curriculum instruction folks who are looking at teacher assignments and course descriptions to make sure they understand that. Your HR and your credentials analyst should be part of you and your CTE people too, if they're helping, facilitating that conversation or reaching out to those students like we used to do. I worked in CTE for a long time. So it really does take a team, and this is a smaller team than end of year, but important that you get those people on board. The fall two submission deadline, remember there's no amendment window for fall two, but the good news is it only requires your LEA approval, right? So you're still looking at data going all the way back into, it's funny to call it fall, and I was trying to find visuals, and it's like, it doesn't feel like fall anymore, especially as I'm looking out I'm in Boston looking out the window at a bunch of leafless trees. It's like they'd be colorful, but you are looking back to Census Day. So all that information is relevant. So there's a link on the agenda for today. You've probably seen this before. We've shared it in the past. It's a internal CalPads fall two timeline. So what do you need to be thinking about, right? Did you take the CSIS fall two trainings? And I think we've shared the links to the CSIS training page in a couple places. And if you can't attend those, which now they've expanded the enrollment possibilities, but maybe you can't make the times, then certainly check out the YouTube page where the recorded sessions are stored later. Have you been looking at that staff and course data to make sure it's in alignment? Who's going to take the lead in the report review process? Who's setting, for each of these various components? Like, do you have an EL person who's going to be reviewing that stuff? Who's your curriculum instruction person maybe involved in that, and what other people may look at that? And what's your timeline to make sure you get it in, because you don't have a lot of wiggle room without an amendment window. The main reports here, the aggregate reports you're looking at are 2.4 and 2.5 for your EL information, 3.6. And I'm going to go into a little more detail about each of these and what you should be looking at in just a minute. 3.6 for your core section enrollment, then 4.1 is where you get your staff count and FTE by job classification, and then your 17.1 for the post-secondary status. But then all these additional aggregate reports are really helpful and inform those, including student lists, student level data that'll help make more sense. And especially the people who are closest to that data should also be looking at some of these as well. So let's take a dive into some various pieces. This PSTS survey, who's required. First of all, you have to be, you have to have a CT program. So if you're an elementary school district, this may not be relevant to you. But if you're operating CT programs, you're required to submit post-secondary status outcome for all your CT completers, even if you're not funded with the Perkins CTAG or programs. So you need to if you have completers. And then all LEAs are expected to submit employment and educational status of students after completing their secondary education, whether they completed or whether they left secondary education in the prior academic year. So last year, 24, 25. So who should be surveyed? This is your CT pathway completers who exited secondary last year. And any student who completed a CT pathway, and it could happen at any time. That's kind of one of the challenges, anytime during high school, grades 9 through 12. So it's not sufficient to just look back at last year's completers because students could have finished in earlier years, right? The CT survey, I didn't include the link. I'll add that later, but the CT survey is up for the year. It's been up for a couple months now. It hasn't changed from the prior year, but in terms of what you're expected to do, there is a page for the CT survey on the CD website. But yeah, here's the trick, right? You need to look back at a couple of years. You need to look at the end of year report 3.20 for your CT completers. And so you can see students who, these are using as example, graduates, last year they would have been in grade 12, but they might have completed this, in 23, 24 as an 11th grader. You could have done that. That's pretty common to complete a CT pathway. And then you also would have wanted to look back even as 10th graders. Probably not many 9th graders completing CT pathways, but certainly some 10th graders may, and then 11th graders. So you may have to run a couple of reports to help, and hopefully you've got some assistance in the purpose with your CT folks to provide a list of folks for whom they should be surveying. Once they're surveyed, this is the results. Once uploaded, this is the report. I had one other report here. It would have been helpful, but yeah. So in terms of who to identify. But this is what, once you see the outcomes of the reporting that they compare here, or then 17.2 shows you the student level details. Moving on, just noting the time. The bigger pieces are probably this English learner services and the staff and course information. And Sean, I hope you will jump in at any point as I'm talking about this. I just want to kind of talk about, this is where it appears. I mentioned it earlier, it appears on the dashboard under priority 1. This is your TAMO data. And so currently the 2023-24 TAMO data got posted on the dashboard in November. It's also posted on DataQuest, right? And so this is where this appears. And, this is an effort. It takes a long time. It's 23-24 data because not only does the data first have to go through you and get certified, then it goes on, gets into CalSAS for the assignment monitoring process, where the county office is going through that data and doing corrections for anything that's, that's a misassignment, or maybe it's not a misassignment. Oh, maybe you had the wrong, there's some adjustments that are made, and then it goes on to the CTC, and then it goes back to the CDE for another look, and then they apply a whole different set of rules, federal rules, to make these determinations. So it takes a while to get it, but it's critical that it's accurate, as accurate as it can be when it gets there. And one of the ways you can maybe, and I think I've talked about this in the past, get a kind of a head start is where may CalPads be having an effect on this data. Obviously, the big number that they look at on the dashboard is the percentage of clear teachers, right? And this gets complicated because this isn't just straight up clear teachers. This is clear teachers as defined by the federal standards. So some things that we allow in California are not considered clear by the feds, such as local assignment options, right? So, but even then, there's still going to be some errors, right? That we can correct, that we have some control over. There's certain things that they are what they are. Local assignment option, for instance, if you have a history teacher who's also a coach for sixth period, right? So local assignment option, it's going to show up as a out of field, I believe. But that's what it is. But anyway, you can have in the ineffective column, you can have these corrected misassignments, right? So if you have sometimes local assignment, they're the various state course or state the legislative numbers for the various local assignment options. You want to make sure that your HR credentials people are evaluating those, make sure those the local assignment options are correct, the LAOs. And also if there are predetermined vacancies, making sure the monitoring authorities, LACOE, are familiar with those. The incompletes, right? So these are some CALPADS errors that you could fix prior to fall two. These are the real ones to look for. The incorrect state course code is a big one. Not marking independent study courses correctly and not marking online courses correctly. So those show up. Then the unknown, these show up under like any courses where there are English learner students enrolled on census day and they're assigned to a teacher with the make sure that they have the appropriate course code, appropriate EL authorization, and use only those education service code 5, so no English services, if there are no ELs enrolled in the class on census day. Now, sometimes this can be the case, right, where you do have English learners and that's going to be a misassignment. But if you assign that, there should be no ELs enrolled in that class on census day, and that does appear at times, and it would be appearing inappropriately. I've included these. My colleague Rebecca Aguilar from Fresno County, bless her, she does such a great work. It's like, why reinvent the wheel? She's happy to share these things. But I've got these several pieces of these resources that are linked in the agenda. One is the top one is this appropriately assigned when looking at state and federal rules. She created this a few years back, and it's still really helpful. It helps break it down for people to understand, like, oh, this is legally assigned according to CTC, that's the state, but the feds see this as a misassignment or it's ineffective because the federal rules are kind of govern all of this, and that's what ends up on the dashboard. But you can see where it's like there's always been kind of this misunderstanding between what's misassigned when we think, well, that's allowed by the CTC, but it doesn't show up with the feds. We also have these breakdown, the course data codes and definitions. This is super helpful if you want to share with your curriculum and instruction people or your HR analysts some of these various things, the course attributes and the staff data elements. This really helps break it out into like really understandable terms, and it includes links within these that will take somebody, if I'm a curriculum instruction person, to a link, for instance, to the CTC appropriate appropriate credentials for certain course codes. So she's done a fantastic job with these. I highly recommend taking a look at those, and those are on the Canvas page. So there are some few things to note here. So in determining which teacher to report, you just want to make sure you report the teacher of record on census day. And that's the teacher hired to teach this course, even if that teacher is out on a statutory leave, right? So you don't want to put somebody else in that place. You want to make sure it's the person who is hired to teach that course. And if the position is vacant, you want to report the staff that is assigned to that course on census day, right? So, and this could be any of the belows, right? So it could be assigned emergency, sorry, didn't mean to advance there. Emergency 30-day sub-credential, prospective substitute teacher permit, right? So you just want to make sure you get the right assignment for the person who's there on census day. You also want to remember a couple of reminders to close out educator records, right? So teacher may have left you last year, you just don't want to leave those records lingering because it can have an impact. You also need to update your service years annually, right? So, and the effective date of that update should be before the start date before fall two, right? So, because this is a cumulative number, right? And that data does go into the assignment monitoring process, the number of years it gets reported, how many years the teacher has. They look at it in terms of effectiveness, ineffective, if less than 2 years. So, if a new teacher is in particular, you want to make sure that they're advancing their years. accordingly so that you can move them out of the ineffective, which is less than 2 years, right? And they do so pretty quickly. And then if credential staff is on leave, the FTE needs to be greater than or equal to 1. So you're still giving it that burden. They may be on leave, but if they have a 8/10 of of a full-time equivalent position, you want to make sure that they have something. They can't have a 0 in there. Anything to
Really
add, Shiv?
quickly, Evan, sorry,
Yeah,
and then I'm gonna exit you all as well too. Um, the slide right before this, if you can go
yeah,
back one.
you got it.
Thank you. Uh, Teachers of record. Most importantly, if you don't see a seed for that teacher, that's like stop, don't go past go directly to your HR, credentialing, talent teams, and just simply ask, what's the seed for this teacher? Okay. Because in order to be into a classroom, all teachers should have a seed, so you should not be missing a seed. Yes, you have your very not rare circumstances. You have your circumstances for like dual enrollment and college professors teaching, where yes, you'll have the seed. You may have a seed of all nines, but even those educators, 80 to 90% of the time, they have experience within the TK through 12, teaching space before they advance to a higher education. And so they have a credential and they have a seat somewhere. So make sure that, your HR team is being able to reach out to those people and grab that seed and then being able to provide it to you.
And Sean, I will add, because this question has come up a couple of times, is if it's an agency provided teacher, and I've heard this asked, the agency should be able to provide you with that teacher seat as well, right? So your HR people may kind of say, well, we don't collect, we don't enter seeds for these agency provided folks, but they should have a seed, right? And so yeah,
100% correct, Evan.
okay,
Yes. And so it's just a matter of someone reaching out to someone else and asking and saying, hey, we need your seat.
yeah. So yeah, they're probably out there somewhere, and it's not easy sometimes because people's names you may not have the whole thing. You can also look on the CTC web, the public. Actually, that doesn't include the seed though, so I shouldn't say that because can't find that in the public record lookup, I don't think.
There is a tool that, and I don't recall the name of it because I don't have access anymore. When I came to work for CDE, I lost my access to it. There's a tool that CTC grants permissions to for a specific like LEA members,
Yeah,
and it has to have that like direct um, email and there's like it's not I don't recall it being an application. Oh no, there was an application for it. And it allows you to basically be able to put in specifics about the educator, whether it's their social security number or some other key identifiers, and it'll literally just pop back their seed number.
yeah. The HR folks should have that. I mean, that's the thing. I can, yeah, they have a lookup that's got a lot more robust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are tools basically versus you having to go out there and dig.
Yeah. All right. So moving forward. So just in terms of going back to some of these primary reports and what to be looking for, here's report 2.5, right, which is the unduplicated count of teachers providing EL services. Again, this is something the various staff assignments are in report 4.3, but in terms of 2.5, have your EL services folks take a look at this. Does the count look right? What are they looking for? Does this look right? Right. So if you see somebody like, well, we should have more teachers in that providing services to English learners under these various the codes that are the types, the codes, the applied EL service codes. If anything looks wonky here, they should alert you so they can make some adjustments to that. 2.4, this is the student count for the various things. And what you might want to look for here, like I mentioned earlier, oops, touchy, is anybody, if you see students who are in the no English services category who are English learners, because these are English learners. And so if you see any kids who are in that no English learner services category, that should be a red flag and you should check those. Now, there may be an occasion where you have somebody who does not have proper EL authorization. And it would be inaccurate to say you're providing those students with EL services as the person wasn't, that's going to create an issue. But use this report, just in terms of a quick check on, red flags, right? And then, some of the ones that I think people get held up on are that primary language instruction, right? And that distinction between the primary language instruction versus designated ELD. And so again, your EL services folks should be able to look at this and understand it. You can see the codes, the various codes down at the bottom in terms of what informs this report, how it's built. But just in terms of a quick, what am I looking for here? You want to look for anything that looks inconsistent with who your English learners are and what kind of programs are assigned to. This is the 4.3, the staff assignment detail. This is the one where you can bring in everybody, right? And it really shows, so, total years of service, like we talked about, your credential and HR people should be taking a look at that for each staff member. The state course code, curriculum instruction people should be confirming this. Also the course content, the departmentalized course standards, which apply to this. Your UC CSU approved. This is curriculum instruction folks. It could also be school counselors who may have an understanding what's on the districts or the schools UC approved list on the UC doorways. The non-standard instructional level, this could be curriculum instruction, school counselor. This might also be if you have a dual enrollment specialist. Some districts have that, who would recognize this is going to be your code 23 or 24 for your college credit or dual enrollment courses. Education services, this is going to include your CNI or EL people, instructional language, CNI. So across the board. Won't go into each one of them from here, but you can see where, this is kind of takes a village, right? The staff assignment detail should be a lot of eyes should be on it. As far as where the data come from, just one reminder, and this one comes up a lot. I know this is a subject of a lot of the misassignments and the assignment monitoring process is that 700, right? So only courses sections where the curriculum is specifically designed for students with disabilities should be flagged in CALPADS with this instructional strategy code 700. This is not a gen ed course, right? So if you see any courses and there may be, 3 special ed students in a gen ed course, that would not be at all uncommon. You even have a push-in support teacher for them. But that course, if it's a gen ed course, should not have the course code 700. Instructional strategy code, I should say. Sean, do you see this a lot as far as an error that crops up? Use of 700 for gen ed. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking. So yes, we do see it as an error. It has decreased. Actually, all errors for fall 2, CTC gave that kudos either last month or in November. And we were very happy to receive that feedback that all errors overall have decreased for CalSAS, but it still does occur, and specifically for like new courses that are being opened up where you have a new teacher that's going in, because it simply gets forgotten to get clicked. All the other teachers had it from like last year and it rolled over, and this year, 1 or 2 got missed. Also, where Cal SAS sees it most for the missed assignments, you had mentioned earlier, Evan, was due to like the student disability type and if the students are being populated with that course. So it knows. So even though it has a 700, it may still come back as an error or a misassignment due to the students not being populated and they can't see it.
Thank you. And on that note, then, so the Fall 2 Report 3.8, this is the course section enrollment. So if you do have courses that are appropriately identified as 700 special education courses, remember that the disability degree of support that was certified as part of your Fall 1 is going to appear on this report now. I haven't looked at this yet, but this is one of the reports that will be updated to help the process along. And finally, I think this is last on this, that this is your non-classroom or support assignments, right? So you just want to make sure that you never use a non-classroom based or support assignment code for any instructional assignment. This is only as like your superintendent, your directors, right? So these are anyone who does not have an instructional assignment, but instructional assignments can include, right? The teachers are of course providing the primary instruction your pull out or push in instruction, right? Those should be included. And then all instructional assignments require course section and state course code. I know this is getting challenging the more detailed we have, but this is kind of a shift. So making sure that everybody has even their push in pull out, that they make sure that they have are not using non-classroom based or support assignment codes. I include, like I said, I had all these additional Fall 2 resources that are linked there. I saw a couple questions, but it looks like they were mostly addressed already by Sean in the chat. So these are a couple things additionally, some just kind of the process for completing Fall 2. And I just want to note some upcoming meetings before we send you off to the breakout with our vendors. If you haven't already, again, I mentioned this earlier, the CSIS training for the Fall 2. There's some meeting starting today, actually. I guess I don't even know, I'm all messed up with my time change here. But keep your eye on these. You can register now. Again, if you're unable to attend these trainings, make sure that you catch up with these on the CSIS YouTube channel, where they're recorded and shared. It might be easier to watch them in an asynchronous fashion. We have another CalPADS network meeting on April 14th. That's our last one for the year. Again, it's virtual, just like today's, but we automatically register you, so you should be hearing from us. And then, of course, always the technical support. I routinely drop in on the CalPADS Q&A from CSIS on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. Always just a crazy plethora of information and things across all. It's always good, and those also are recorded, and they do a great job at timestamping the various topics. So sometimes you just want to go look. Here's a topic I'm having, and you may just go listen to the response from CSIS and CDE staff. There's a regional meeting. I thought I had a slide there, and I guess maybe it's in they just sent out the March meetings. March 3rd and 4th meetings are now available for registration on the CSIS website. So the schedule is listed on the CDE page, but the registration now is through the CSIS professional development link. And those of you who I mentioned some of these others, but also the CalPADS LAA listserv, always another great source. Here's your links if you want them to the special ed data office hours. I know that some are with some upcoming holidays. Those are going to be off, right? But the CalPADS regional update means the end of year focus for March 3rd and 4th. So you definitely want to tune in for those. And then it changes for next week with the May meetings. And lastly, before I send you off, I would love to get your feedback. So I'm going to leave this up here. We have, and Roy or Karina, if you could just drop in that tiny URL. We love to hear from you, and we love that plus delta. Tell us what more we could give you. If the question doesn't quite fit, just speak your mind. Tell us if, what would be of more value to you, because we do want to get this right for you and be a resource in addition to all those other ones I listed. We try to take a little bit of a different bent, because we do try to speak non-Calpadian to people, that who are here. And I saw a lot of people who I know are not necessarily CalPADS people, but recognize the importance of getting the CalPADS data correct. So that's why they attend these. So give us your thoughts. I'd love to hear back from you.
Evan, really quickly, I'm not sure if it was addressed. There's a question. It says, is there verbiage or written guidance regarding districts collecting SEIDs for non-district staff?
I'm replying to it, Karina. I'm trying to
Oh,
find
you
Okay.
are? Oh, I'm so
I
sorry.
know.
I wasn't
And
sure.
no, yeah, you're so okay. You can't see because I haven't pressed send yet, and I was like, I'm trying to find the TOR link in CTC. So, in essence, yes, there are several like FAQs. I've kind of compiled some together, and placed them in there. For you, it's basically the responsibility of the LEA, but then also in which fashion is that teacher serving. So if the non-district staff in which they're serving. So if they're serving as a teacher of record, yes, by statute, they must have a seat. If they are a substitute serving as a teacher of record by statute, yes, they must have a seat, because if not, they're not appropriately authorized to be in a classroom with students alone. And for other like administrators or service providers, yes, they should have that certificated administrators, and that's a key to note is that word certificated. And so for that, you have to check with your HR and talent teams to know if that person is actually in a certificated position. I know I once thought that my CBO needed to be reported. Based upon her job description, she didn't need to be. So yeah, so it those are going to be specific like local ones that may factor into it.
Okay, and then we have one more question. Is there a data layout available for the CCI student level data file that was mentioned earlier available in SOARS? Vendors don't have access to that system.
Yeah, Jan, that's a great question. They included one in the email that went out. I will post that the data layout I'm going to actually doctor it up for our DAM meeting, but I'll put it in the CalPads and I'll email it to you as well, so you can see what's in there. What is interesting, I guess, is um, the component pieces. So they have the prepared by, approaching prepared by. That's probably really familiar to most of the vendors. But then they have uh, the things that get obscured. This is where it becomes useful, more useful than other stuff, is the various measures. So it includes like completed, um, semester college credit courses completed, or AP course completed. And you can see it's like, oh, there was one, or there was one AP course, and it's like, oh, if they'd had one more, right? You could start to add up those pieces, and I'll be happy to send that to you.
Oh, please send it to everybody.
I said, Leonid, hey, I'm going to post it to the Canvas page. So as soon as I
Thank you very
have a
much.
chance, you got it. And Leonid, yeah, we need to pull that down and look at our students too. Leonid is our CalPads person here at LACOE.
Yeah, call me and we can schedule, we can
Okay.
do that. Thank
Sounds
you.
great. Well, once again, we fit it in under an hour. I'm always shocked that how much we can get through, or sometimes we don't, but we somehow it comes out right. Sean, thank you. I know you had a hard stop and you stayed longer, which is very generous of you. I really appreciate it. And we are going to now, if you could drop in the link to the vendor. Thank you, Karina. We have which vendors we have. Well, of course, Aries is here, Power School is here, and sorry, remind me who else was
EduPoint?
joining. EduPoint, thank you. And I really appreciate EduPoint joining us. I'll leave that up for a minute, so you can make sure you can click that agenda and get into your next meeting. Please, feel free to close out with us. We'll keep this running for a minute. Yeah, thanks, Jaime. And we will see you around. We'll see you at the CSIS Wednesdays at 3, or we'll see you at the regional meetings. Or maybe we'll see you at the data governance meeting. That would be kind of cool if you're bringing them in. Thank you, everybody.